Well, for a number of reasons, this month it didn't really work out for me to do a whole technique breakdown and edit the video together. So, what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to start recording and then I'm just going to talk. To make it even easier on myself, I'm going to give a speech that I've given a million times before. People who've been to Sunkissed may remember this as the Batman in the cave speech. So this speech was inspired the first time for me after I saw the movie The Dark Knight Rises. It's PG-13, so I guess parental discretion before you show this movie to any younger swimmers. But I talk about that movie when I want to talk about dealing with nerves before a swim race. So this is probably a good time of year to talk about that because a lot of people are coming into either their last race of the season soon maybe, or maybe not their last race but a championship meet that means a lot to them, or need to be like hurrying up to get some qualifying times. And the thing that I reference as my metaphor for how fear and nerves factor into your races is in that movie, The Dark Knight Rises. There's a part where Bruce Wayne, Batman, is imprisoned in this cave where it's really a it's like one of the like straightest allegories, pure allegories you'll ever see in a movie. The prison is a cave in which you're like anyone is allowed to escape the prison at any time if they're able to climb out of the cave and scale this wall that goes all the way up, and you have to jump from ledge to ledge to make it to the top. And no one's ever done it except for supposedly one child who made it out of the cave one time. Nobody else has been able to make it to the top, and so Bruce Wayne has to climb and get out. And there's one particularly hard gap to jump across that he can't make that jump, and he keeps trying. And every time he tries, he has like a rope that's one end of the rope is tied to him, the other end is tied to the wall, so that if he falls and he doesn't make the jump, he doesn't die. And the rope like causes him to like swing and slam against the wall and get hurt, but he doesn't fall all the way to the bottom and fall to his death. And then this old man talks to him and tells him that the only way he can escape the cave is to make the jump without the rope. And people who've heard me give this speech before have heard me explain it before, but the first couple times that I gave this speech, people had seen the movie, but a lot of people don't remember why in the logic of the movie, it's necessary for Batman to make the jump without the rope. I'm just going to leave that as a cliffhanger for a little while. I'll let you think about it. I remember when I was a child being really nervous for something, and I don't remember if it may have been a swim race or it may have been something different. And the advice that I was given as to how to think about my nervousness and my fear over doing whatever it was that I was going to do, I was told, well, your nerves are what's going to, give you the energy to, really perform well at whatever you're doing. And I remember hearing that for the first time, and it gave me no relief at all to hear that. It was not what I wanted to hear, because all I wanted at that point was relief. Like, I don't want to know that I'm going to have more energy when I'm nervous. All I want is relief from this stress. You know, like saying that the stress is going to give me more energy doesn't help me right now. I just want to feel better. And anytime I swam, I was always scared before my races, and the bigger the race, the more scared I was. And I've just come to accept over time that that's part of the game. It was something that, never went away from me really as I got more experienced. The fear of the races never really went away. And I think that's the way it is for most people. One thing that's stuck with me ever since I heard it, a long time ago, I heard an interview with Mike Tyson, and he was asked about, during his prime as the greatest boxer in the world, the baddest man on the planet, he's the most feared person. He's the person who everybody else fears. And the interviewer asked him, how did he feel, during his prime when he was, walking to the ring to be, to show that he was the best boxer in the world and knock people out. And his answer was, he was terrified. He said, I was terrified because I'm walking to the ring against a professional heavyweight boxer who's going to try to kill me. Of course I'm terrified. And he was the scariest guy in the world, and he was scared. And I think, boxing's certainly a different kind of sport than swimming, but swimming is also a sport that involves pain. And I just think for the vast majority of people, when you're about to perform in a sport that involves pain, you're going to be scared most of the time. So I think you just have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. For me, and I think for a lot of people, that anxiety leading up to the race is more painful than the race itself. But it's not necessarily going to go away. You just have to accept that it's there. The one caveat I would say to that is you don't want to be feeling that way for like hours, because that sort of mental stress over too long a time will actually physically drain you of your energy. So if it's more than a half hour before your race and you're feeling like terrified, then I think it's important to find something to distract yourself, find someone to talk to, find something to do. At that point, you need to get the race out of your mind. But when the race is coming up and you're at that point where you're watching a few heats before your heat go by, it's coming up, we're down to 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute until the race. That I think the fear at that point is a good thing. And going back to my Batman story, right? Most people, when I would bring up that story and say, okay, do you remember why Batman has to jump without the rope? People would say things like the most popular wrong answer is because the rope is too heavy. No, it's a metaphor. It has nothing to do with the actual weight of the rope. What the old man says to Bruce Wayne is that you have to jump without the rope because you have to unleash your primal fear. The only way you can summon the strength to make the jump is when you know for real that if you don't make it, you're going to die. And, that's, it's coded into our biology. Fight or flight, right? When you find yourself in a life or death situation, that is when your body goes into fight or flight mode, and you find the most strength and speed and energy that a human can possibly have. Now, generally, there's no actual, risk to your life just from swimming a race, even though it feels that way sometimes. But it's actually not a bad thing to your performance if it may feel like it's life or death. It's something I don't do it that often because I don't want to traumatize people. But once in a while, if I think somebody's not hyped up for a race that really is important, I'll just try to scare them, just go up to them behind the block and be like, you got to remember, this is your last chance. If you don't make this qualifying time here, this is it for this season. You got to do it. And, usually if I walk away thinking, okay, I scared the heck out of that person, they usually swim pretty fast. And I guess the reason why I feel like it's important for me to say this out loud to the team once in a while is that I guess it is not necessarily everybody's position that fear is a good thing or anger is a good thing. It can be a bad thing or a good thing. And often people talk about, what's good is positivity. You got to have positive thoughts. And again, I think that's something that can be good or bad, and it all depends on how you react to it. I think your feelings and thoughts and emotions toward swimming, whether they help you or hurt you in your swimming, is not really dependent on the feeling itself, but how you react to it. The same feeling can cause a good reaction that's going to help your swimming, or a bad reaction that's going to hurt your swimming. So it's not necessarily about how you feel, but how you use that feeling to inspire what you're going to do. I'm going to kind of go off in an experimental direction here. This is not, this didn't used to be part of this speech, but I'm going to try it. Completely different story. When I was in high school, one time I had a science teacher who decided to tell the class a story about how being religious can help advance science. And I'm just using this as an example. I'm not going to tell anybody to be religious or not be religious. That's not the point of the story. I don't want to change your faith or lack thereof. But the teacher was responding to the idea that normally the idea of science and the idea of God are against each other, but that actually, depending upon how you think about God in your head, believing in God can actually be inspire scientific discovery. And he gave an example. I don't remember the exact story or the name of the real life scientist, but it was a real life example of a scientist in history who discovered a formula to help explain how planets and gravity and objects move in space together. And it was something that other scientists had tried to come up with this formula in the past, and they'd all given up and said, well, there is no solution. It's just random. But this one scientist, because of his strong religious convictions and his belief that the universe that God created cannot be random, there must be a solution, he tried harder than anybody else to discover this formula. And it was his belief in God that made him advance science. And so, it's so in this story, someone's belief in God caused them to do more and try harder. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, you could have someone who is equally religious and equally strong belief in God, And instead of that motivating them to try harder at something, they would just not try at all and say, well, you know, God will deliver me what I want, and therefore give no effort. So you can have the same belief go in two different directions. One direction is, okay, I believe in God, therefore I don't have to try. Or on the other side, I believe in God, therefore I'm going to try harder than anyone else. It's not about what you feel or what you believe, it's about how you react to it. And so going back to my ideas about anger, fear, these are bad things. They're bad things if you react to them badly. They're good things if you use them to do better. You know, I think even positive thoughts, again, they could have a bad outcome if you don't have the right reaction to your positive thoughts. You know, the idea of being positive, having confidence in your swimming races. You know, if you get it in your head that all you have to do to swim fast is think good thoughts, you know, just think about something that makes you happy. Think about rainbows and ice cream and puppies, and then that's going to cause you to swim fast. And you think about that before your race. You know, I think that's kind of I think that's a fragile mindset. What tends to happen is, you know, maybe it kind of has a positive effect one time of if you just try to think happy thoughts before your race, and maybe it'll work once or twice. But the first time that it doesn't work, I think the spell is kind of broken at that point. And and once the magic doesn't work one time, you lose confidence in it. On the other hand, if your positive thought is, I am certain that I am going to succeed at this no matter how many tries it takes, then that's not something that's going to get beaten down with one failure. If your positive thought is, I am certain that I can do this and therefore I won't stop until I do, then you can go out there and fail. And when you fail, you'll come back and do it again. And if you fail a second time, you'll do it a third time. And if you fail a third time, you do it a fourth time. You know, that's the sort of positive thinking of, you know, you're not thinking of it as a magic spell of just, you know, I just think that the world is all, you know, rainbows and happiness. And if I think about that, that's going to make me swim fast. And that doesn't work. On the other hand, if your positive thought is, the world is full of failure and disappointment, but that can never stop me, then that's the sort of positive thinking that I believe works. But honestly, I don't even think that's necessary. If you're behind the blocks before your biggest race and all you're feeling is that you're so scared you might die, maybe that's all you need. You're already on the right track.